Hey y'all, welcome back to We Should Do This More Often. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Ashley. And today's episode is going to be one that hits really close to home for both of us.
We're going to be talking a lot about something that people tend to carry quietly, and that is loving someone through addiction.
So, whether it is alcohol, drugs, or something else, it isn't always a them problem. It affects families, relationships, and friendships.
And we're going to be sharing some personal stories today.
So, if you've ever loved someone who was fighting a battle that you just couldn't win for them, this episode's for you.
A lot of people have or know someone that is battling addiction, and what do we do to be able to move forward when you can't fix what you can't fix?
Loving someone battling addiction creates a lot of emotional conflict. Their choices cause pain. Lines get blurred between compassion and enabling.
It affects everyone, right? It's not just the person who's using or doing. It affects everyone who is within proximity or has a memory of that person. It forces us to make those impossible decisions. Should I stay? Should I go? What will happen to this person and the guilt that that causes? It's also about setting boundaries and hard boundaries. And do those boundaries really help, or do they cause more harm?
Because those boundaries can feel like betrayal. But sometimes it's the most you can do. Many people, especially women, stay too long trying to save someone and end up drowning themselves.
So, Ashley, you grew up with an alcoholic as a stepfather. I grew up with a mother who abused medication. And I also, early on in my marriage of 18 years, my husband ended up having an alcohol addiction. So, I think that we can lean on a lot of our experiences, but then also put a little bit of research and a flare of biblical truths to it.
And in addition to living through my stepfather's addiction as a young child, I also dated someone for quite some time that had an alcohol and marijuana addiction. Mom got married probably when I was around 8 years old. Got excited in the hype of having a father where I didn't have one before. And I will say that the excitement very quickly got torn from me. Gosh, there were some really crazy moments. Though he was never physically abusive during those times, he was a very volatile alcoholic. When he would drink, his emotions were very bipolar. The alcohol did something to his mental state, as far as he was either completely nice or completely off the rails. And it created just an environment of not knowing if you were safe or not from day to day. And it was really difficult to love him through that. If I'm honest, I don't know that I did love him through that as a child. I think I grew up sort of compartmentalizing him. It wasn't until adulthood, and he's been sober for years now, and I praise God for that. But it wasn't until adulthood, really, that I found grace for him. And then there was London. We have talked about London a little bit before, but I really loved London. And the scary part for me, like this is my experience, I didn't realize that London had a problem when we were dating. It wasn't until well after, and I think I had some maturity come on me and some age, where looking back, I realized yeah, there's a problem. Now, did I think he drank too much? Absolutely. But I didn't realize that it was the illness that it was. And it is an illness. And he smoked marijuana. And that was never something that I personally wanted to be around. Now, Andrea, I don't know about you, but like that's just not ever been anything that I've
Yeah, I'm such a lame. I mean, Ashley can probably even tell you from our younger years. I'm a person who'd have like one drink socially, and I didn't even really like it. I just kind of would sip on it to make people think. I just have never really enjoyed that. I guess I like having complete control of my body.
Yeah.
Like something that's important to me. So when I lose those senses and that safety and that control, I just don't like it. So I'm just not a big drinker. I've never done drugs. Like I just don't
Yeah.
drink. I just don't like that.
I have never wanted to go to a party. I drove because I knew he was going to drink. I drove him to the party, and one of the stipulations, because I was not like a person that wanted to be around a lot of people I didn't know. One of the stipulations for me taking him to that party was I don't want to be around drugs. And if there's going to be any of that, I don't want to go. He assured me there would not be. We were at the party for 5 minutes at this apartment complex that I'd never been to with people I didn't know, and he left me in the living room to go in a back bedroom, and he was back there for 30 minutes, and I started smelling it, and I was like, okay, well, this is my boundary. So I remember texting him, and I said, you promised me there wasn't going to be marijuana here, and I can smell it, and I know you're back there doing it, so I'm leaving. And I remember him going, well, how do I get home? Not apologizing, but how am I going to get home? And I was like, well, that's the consequence you're going to have to figure out because you put me in this position.
Uber too, guys, before Uber.
Way before Uber and taxis, they're expensive. I left him there, and he was at least a good 45 minutes from his house at minimum, maybe an hour. So I left him there, but it hurt me to leave him there because I loved him. And that was one of those times that those boundaries, it was like, am I betraying him? Am I leaving him stranded? Or am I standing up for myself? And that might be one of my proudest moments with him, I think, to date, because it was just a moment where I stood up and said, you know, this isn't right. You're mistreating me. You're betraying my trust. And I'm not going to just go along. So now I think, from what I understand, he's been sober for a while too. So I'm very proud of him for that. But going through it, my birthday, he got in a car wreck and ran into a tree or a telephone pole. I can't remember which one it was, and completely totaled his truck. He was in the hospital for 3 days. He was supposed to pick me up to take me to do something on my birthday, and I just never heard from him. And it wasn't until 3 days later when he was able to get a charger for his phone, and he was still in the hospital, and he said, I was in the hospital. So, and it was because he was drunk. So I feel like I'd been a lot more understanding if he had just gotten in a car accident and it wasn't due to him drinking. But there were a lot of hurtful instances because they prioritize their addiction over the people that they're supposed to care about. You feel like you're prioritizing them and they're not willing to put you as their priority. And that's one of the most frustrating things I think you can ever deal with another human being. Now, Andrea has a much closer story with loving someone through alcoholism and addiction that I can't wait for you all to hear, because I really think it is just, and I love him too. I have the pleasure of, I'm one of the people that actually love him too. So I'm going to give it over to Andrea to have her give us some of her testimony and some of the testimony of her wonderful Marsh.
I know. He was like, I told him that we were going to record this one, and he goes, well, I mean, you're going to tell him I'm recovered, right? So, yes, I am. I have not had a drink in 12 years. I was like, I plan on telling them. So before I get there, I do want to kind of start off with my mom, though, too, because I do think that you need to see where I'm coming from. And I do want to say, though, that now she is completely sober. She's got herself on antidepressants. I mean, she is like doing phenomenal. This is the mom that I'm proud to have, that I wish that I had had my entire life. But I do think that we are all supposed to experience life the way it's intended, and we're supposed to learn from the lessons. And I do believe that my mother's struggles equipped me to handle what happened with my husband. So when Marshall and I got together 19 years ago, I was
Wow.
Yeah, like for real.
Wow.
That's how long you've been friends with him. Because Ashley and Marshall instantly clicked. So, because he's just a good person. You can tell he's got a heart. He's a heart of gold. A good person.
He's my buddy.
He is, and I thought it was normal for people to drink like that. Ashley and I kind of drank a little here and there. We're in our early 20s. Like, that's just something we're doing. We're going to clubs and having fun and having parties at my house and stuff like that. So, my husband comes from a long line of alcohol and drug abuse. He actually was taken away from his mother while she was drunk. His father was MIA. He's fathered like a bunch of kids, and he's dead from cirrhosis of the liver. So that tells you he probably led an unhealthy lifestyle. And so did his mom, because her autopsy also showed that she lived a very hard life with drugs and alcohol. So when we got together, we had very similar upbringings. We had a little bit of some substance or alcohol abuse in our families. We were both end up being ultimately raised by our grandparents. His grandmother was incredible. I think out of anyone, I'm the closest with her, and she's not my blood relative. And so with Marshall, and Ashley was there through it. And he had a DUI before I met him and had gone through all that stuff. And again, I thought all of this was normal, just like Ashley. And all her situation and my situation happened right along the same time.
Yes, they did.
Planned our way through thinking that this was normal, and it wasn't. And we realized it was normal when my husband got his second DUI and went to jail for 21 days, and Ashley lived with me.
Was it his second or his third that got him?
Not had a Thank God, not on.
Well, I remember him having the blow thing on his car. What's it called?
A breathalyzer to start his car.
Because I remember us being like, we have to try it. We have to try it. So I do remember that. Sorry.
How we grow. Anyways, it was not good. And we end up wanting a family. We always wanted a family. And, we tried and tried, and we had some issues. Marshall just off and on, like he would get sober, he wouldn't. And then he'd go to his mom and his grandma and complain about me because she's trying to control me. His mom labeled me a pillhead, like my mom, because she says I took prescription pills, and I did, thyroid medicine, and at the time, high blood pressure medicine. So she used that as a way to weaponize my mom being a pillhead. And so that was a big hardship in our relationship. And I get it was hard being stigmatized as an alcoholic because he did not at the time believe he was an alcoholic. So we had my son, Deegan, and it was very hard to love him through this stage, because when I had Deegan, it was really bad. I was a teacher, and I would, we'd go to bed, and I would go downstairs, and Marshall would be passed out, hanging halfway off the couch. Beer would be spilled over on the floor. And I just had to get Deegan up and ready and myself, and then go teach kids who were probably also living in similar situations. And I felt like a hypocrite. And that's not something that I like to feel like. And so it continued to get worse to where he needed like a 24 pack every night to be able to function every night. I mean, he was really heavy. He looked unhealthy. He was having high blood pressure issues because he drank all the time. And so one day I came home from school, and he was not home, and neither was Deegan. And 2 of his days off, he watched Deegan, and he pulled in, and he was completely plastered. He had been at his sister's house, and he drove with my child in the car.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I was done. There was the moment that I knew that I'd rather be a single mom and take care of my kid by myself than have my kid grow up and continue to be a loser like that. Because that's what that behavior was. It was that, to me, he had everything he had ever wanted. The wife, the house, the kid, the family, all the things. And he just still chose to drink. And he He chose that over us every single time. And so I called his grandmother and I told her, hey, your grandson just pulled into my house because everyone made excuses about Marshall. Andrea's just control freak. She's just trying to control everything. I called her and I said, you don't believe it, and that's fine. You don't believe he's an alcoholic. He is really bad off right now, and I'm going to leave with my son, who did thankfully make it home with his father, who drove with him drunk. And she went over, and that was a turning point. He did get sober. He did seek treatment. We did get therapy. But before that, I said, I'm out. And you can go and trash me to your family. You can say all these things. But at the end of the day, I really don't give a crap.
Yeah.
And my kid's not going to be an alcoholic. Ashley, I do want to give a little bit of some statistics here, because when we do look, the risk of developing alcoholism in children of alcoholics is linked to a combination of genetic predisposition and environmental factors, which Marshall checked both of them. Family history, environmental factors. Children of alcoholics are 4 times more likely to develop alcohol use disorders themselves. And 1 in 10 children in the U.S. live with a parent who has alcohol. I thought that number would actually be higher, but it's not. And so he got sober and everything changed. We went from having a very volatile relationship. When you talked about like the bipolarness, like, who Marshall and Ashley can attest to this. Marshall was in this great, great, great mood, and then he hit a certain point in the drinking and it turned
Flipped.
nasty. Like it was just a completely, like you didn't even recognize him. Like
Yep.
it, and you never knew when the switch was going to flip. So he would go from being this fun-loving, amazing, awesome person to bam, he's this horrible, like just picking arguments and picking fights or break his alarm clock. He also broke a lot of stupid things that were his, which I'm glad for, that he broke his things and not mine. But I mean, he would do a lot of stupid things. So he got sober and I stayed with him, and we had 2 more children, because he's an incredible person. He's an incredible father. He's an incredible provider. And he, during all of this, was functioning and completely able to go to work every single day. But I decided there was going to be a boundary there. And that boundary was crossed when my kid got caught in a crossfire. And that's something that I just really would not let lay down. And that's why I get when women say, well, I don't know what do I do? And okay, you can love them through it. But at some point, if it is harming you or harming your children, you got to walk away.
Yeah.
My husband has been very honest about the history in his, and we're hoping by labeling it now that by the time they are adults, they know what signs to look for, and like, this is unhealthy patterns or behaviors. My oldest son especially is like the most judgmental person when it comes to any kind of like drugs or alcohol. So, I mean, I did something right there.
No, absolutely. And I'll say this, like, you reading that statistic, my mom has been concerned because, listen, I love Jesus, but I drink a little. But that has never been an issue for me. And I think I want to be clear that we are not bashing people that drink or people that enjoy drinks, because I'm one of them. And every, like, 3 to 6 months or so, I will have wine. But, it's not been an issue for me because I saw, how bad it could be, and how it could make you act. So, but mom was always worried about that, because mom was an alcoholic before I came along. Like, she had been sober for years. So that statistic is very interesting. Boundaries are so hard to set in situations like these. In any situation where you love someone and you're being mistreated, if you have an issue or a difficulty setting boundaries, I would encourage you to go to therapy. That's where I learned boundaries, because I grew up without knowing what a boundary was. There were a lot of things that I didn't know how to do until I went to therapy. So don't be afraid. If you have been kicking back and forth the idea of going to therapy or some sort of coaching or anything like that that's going to help you mental health, because this will put you in a bad headspace, especially if you're dealing with someone that you love that has this sickness and they're choosing to not deal with it. You need to get help for you, not just for them, but for you to help you set those boundaries. It's amazing to me that Andrea and I were both able to set some sort of boundary without even knowing what boundaries were at the time.
Can I tell you something funny I saw on
Yeah.
Instagram the other day? It was just this like little meme of this woman sipping. She goes, I saw a post that said, travel to a place where no one in your bloodline has been ever been. So I went to therapy because
Yes.
actually I am the first person in my family also to actually go to therapy. And
Yeah.
that in itself is interesting because a lot of them needed therapy.
But embrace loving people from a distance. You can love people without having them be an active participant in your life and without being an active participant in theirs. I think that has been one of the hardest life lessons I've ever learned. And that comes with setting boundaries. I remember putting my foot down with a family member and they said, but I'm your family." And I'm like, "I understand. We're working in dysfunction and I can't live a life where that's occurring on a daily basis. It's okay to walk away from someone who chooses their addiction over you." And I do want to talk some scripture. My thought when we were talking about this episode was the prodigal son, which is Luke 15:11 through 32. Sometimes you have to let someone walk away before they come home. The prodigal son's father didn't chase after the son. He waited on him to come back home. Now, when he came back home and he had righted himself, his father welcomed him back with open arms, but he didn't chase after him. Just like what with Andrea was saying with Marsh, um, you gotta let them go and fix themselves and then come back to you. Sometimes when it's so bad, you can't go with them as an active participant the whole way through it. And sometimes it takes them seeing what they're about to lose. Because I'll tell you something else we do all the time. We threaten and then don't hold them accountable. We say, we're going to leave you, but we don't. And when they actually see, now I'm not promising that they'll see if you leave. And if they don't, then good riddance, you don't need them anyway. But if they see what they're about to lose and don't choose to change, then that's one thing. But a lot of times if they really love you and you leave them, they're going to see what they're about to lose and it's going to make a difference. At least in my opinion. What do you think?
And Marshall will even say that when he sobered up and had to sit with the damage, because when he had to sit and realize, he even says to this day, when I sat back and I was in an empty house and I realized that I was just like my mom, my children were gone, the people who loved me were gone, and I was just sitting there with the only thing that I had, which was the comfort of a drink. That's when it was, I don't want my son to feel that way about me, the way that I feel about my parents. And I mean, and then now I look back, even now that both of his parents are dead and both of them are dead from poor life choices with alcoholism and drug abuse, that was a really smart awakening that he had, because how sad would it have been to have such a good person? And he's a good person, but I let him drown me. But until I had a kid and I realized I'm not going to drown. This isn't my problem. This isn't my addiction. Now, I supported him. I will say, as a wife, I supported him, because I mean, how unfair would that be if he's like giving up drinking and I'm like, hey, like, so I mean, I gave up drinking too. We also, and Ashley can attest to this, we gave up putting ourselves in situations where others would drink around us too.
Well, and I was going to say too, I think that by God's beautiful design. That 5 years that you and I spent apart, all this happened. This happened shortly after Deegan's first birthday. I actually think it was closer to his second. So that 5 years went from us having a party house to not having nothing. It for me at least, it stopped when Deegan was born
Mhm.
because that's always been some sort of unsaid boundary too. Because I mean, you had a baby. You
Mhm.
know, we weren't going to do that. I was still over there a lot. I mean, a little bit less that year, I think, and that's, I think, completely understandable with you having a newborn, but still over there quite a bit. And so the energy shifted, but the comfort of who you're able to do things around matters. And I think God allowing that separation of not only me, I think I was the last one to go out of that group of us
Right.
that all hung around together. But just having that separation, that's what put Marshall kind of by himself too. Because if you had left and he had still had us popping by, checking on him, and doing stuff like that, I mean, God, the way God works things out.
I never even thought of that until just now. My gosh. So it was like one thing happened after another, and I did not see until this moment sitting right here that those people were picked off, and you were the last one to go. And for me, I wouldn't say that it had anything to do with we weren't a party house or we weren't this. It was because I was a mother and she was still kind of in her, I'm trying to find the love of my life stage. And it was just this, we were both just in these in between places. But it
Yeah.
was so cool to sync back up together. And when she saw that Marshall was sober, I
Y'all,
mean,
I was so
it was
happy.
like you almost cried. You were like, he doesn't, I said, he doesn't drink.
Because there were nights when you're in the middle of it, and I remember sitting on your couch in your first house,
Hmm.
and Marsh, I think, was out on the back patio drinking. And you just, there was a moment, there was one night, it was like, I realized how bad it was.
Hmm.
And not that I didn't, like, I knew he was drinking all the time because we were all kind of drinking together, but I didn't realize how much and how bad it was until Andrea looked at me and said, "No, like he's passing out and not remembering things."
Like on a Tuesday night. Ashley said immediately, like, I will not drink. We will not. We have to stop. Like, that's the kind of friend you want to have and you want to surround yourself with when you've got a problem. When you look back and you don't understand why those were times when I looked back and I didn't really understand why a lot of that had happened until just now. Those people had to go away
Hmm.
for healing to happen because once he got sober and once we got over the hurt of all those years and he had a couple of hiccups, and the hiccups were when we befriended certain people and we would immediately recalibrate and we had to cut ourselves off from those people because he doesn't do well with the peer pressure.
When we reconciled, and the first time I came over to your new house, and he walked in the door, and I got to see each other face to face, for me to get to look at him and say, "I am so proud of you," was special. It was special. Look, I've got Andrea crying this episode, guys.
Thanks for that.
The emotionless void is
Like,
crying.
what's wrong with me? Nope. See, I cry every episode.
I know, y'all. I am an emotional roller coaster of a woman. I will laugh and cry at the same time.
Well, we hope that this conversation gave you permission to just breathe and maybe even let go of some of the hurt and the pain that you're carrying. Not of love, but of the weight you were never meant to carry.
Yeah, these kind of conversations that remind us we should do this more often.
We definitely should, Ashley.